Oh yes, folks, I just love hearing that music. I just love hearing it. It's the WC World Championship Breaking News Special Edition. The NFL Hall of Fame 2016 class. I want to give a review of it, so I'm going to give a review of it in this video. I'm going to give a brief overview of all of the inductees into the class of 2016, their career stats, what they meant to the game, and what they meant to me as a fan of the game. All right. So, you know, the first guy I want to talk about in the class of 2016 is Orlando Pace. Now, Orlando Pace, spent the majority of his career with the St. Louis Rams. Just a bookend, man. Offensive tackle, mean, all in your face. He ended his career with the Chicago Bears, but we remember him as a Ram. When you think about Kurt Warner, even Trent Greene for a period of time, but when you think about Kurt Warner and that greatest show on turf, you have to mention Orlando Pace's name. He was a big part of that. Kurt Warner, I think he was a finalist for the Hall of Fame this year. But Orlando Pace is going to get in. He won the Super Bowl, like I said, back with the Rams. 7-time Pro Bowler. The guy was just automatic. When you talk about being a complete tackle from A to Z, the guy was just it. You know what I'm saying? It was just, one of those things in which, I aspired to be an offensive tackle back in the day. And I would try to look at, tapes of Orlando Pace and, his matchups with, with guys like Bruce Smith and, Kevin Greene is another guy. But Orlando Pace was definitely a guy that for his size, he was nimble. He was very strong. And, like I said, when you think about the Rams, that greatest show on turf, you got to think about him. All right. Now, who I want to talk about, I just mentioned Kevin Greene. So I'm just going to bring up Kevin Greene now. Kevin Greene, inducted into the Hall of Fame, 5-time Pro Bowler. He spent, he was drafted by the Rams. And then he went to the Steelers. I think that he definitely said that, the pinnacle of his career was with the Steelers. And I agree. Carolina Panthers, and then San Francisco 49ers. Kevin Greene was definitely ahead of his time, man. Like when people talk about J.J. Watt, I'm pretty sure if you ask J.J. Watt how, who he models his game after, I think that Kevin Greene would definitely be on that short list. A very high motor. I think he led the league in sacks. I think maybe 1 or 2 years. He had a career 160 sacks. So Kevin Greene was definitely ahead of his time, man. When you see all these guys now, you see the Dwight Freeney's who's still playing apparently. Julius Peppers, I've definitely, he wasn't necessarily a finesse guy, but he had finesse to his game. He was very versatile. One of those guys that, like I said, you think about Kevin Greene. I think about Kevin Greene. I think about Strahan. All those guys, like they kind of marry each other. You know what I'm saying? And from my standpoint, where I'm looking out, maybe Lance Briggs. You know what I'm saying? Like those type of guys, man. He reminds me like of maybe like a Derek Brooks. Not necessarily from a what is it called? From a size standpoint, but from just being a smart player on the field. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't as quick as like a Derek Brooks, but he was definitely a guy that could get out and defend. He was doing that pretty well. Kevin Greene, Hall of Fame career. Now I want to go on to Tony Dungy. Yes, Tony Dungy. All right. He played for the Steelers back in the day, and he also played for the San Francisco 49ers. Super Bowl champion, of course. I remember Tony Dungy more so as a coach. You know what I'm saying? More than I do as a player, of course, because I'm a little younger. And I get into debates with Tampa Bay fans all the time over this specific subject, where it's like, John Gruden won a championship with Tony Dungy's team, and it's like I just have to say that. Like some people might not like me saying that, but you know that's kind of how I feel. I think that Bucks defense that he engineered was definitely ahead of his time. You can see like there was a small period of time in the NFL where you had the Buccaneers defense, the Ravens defense, the Steelers defense. It was just nobody touching those three defenses during like a certain period of time. And maybe you could say New England's defense, but New England, like I said, New England was more so of a call that shouldn't have been, and you know Vinatieri. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I'm not trying to take a crap on New England fans because I know y'all, a little butthurt, because Brady's gonna be out the first 4 games. But get back to the whole point. Like Dungy was the engineer of that Buccaneers defense with Warren Sapp, and I've already mentioned Derek Brooks and Rondé Barber down there. Man, that defense was dynamic, and he was definitely the pioneer of that. I mean, he got his Super Bowl with Peyton in Indianapolis, but I always remember Tony Dungy as the head coach um, of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, being the engineer of that offense back in the day. Now I want to talk about Ken Stabler, 4-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion, league MVP, former league MVP. He played with the Oakland Raiders, the Houston Oilers, and the New Orleans Saints in his career. Finished up his career with the Saints. Now, they used to call Ken Stabler the Steak. They used to call him the Snake. And when you watch the guy play, man, he was just another guy. Like, I think his game kind of reminded me of Frank Tarkenson a little bit. Like a lot of people compare Russell Wilson to Frank Tarkenson. Like this guy he was just very versatile, man. He was a guy that had a really good feel for the pocket. He had a pretty darn good arm. One of the things that you hear a lot about Ken Stabler was that he had a lot of tenacity, a lot of guts, and the leadership to kind of lead his team down the field, game-winning drives and all that good stuff. I'm surprised that Ken Stabler wasn't more than just a one-time Super Bowl champion. But during that time, like, I mean, just look at the teams that he was going up against in the 80s and the 70s, especially in the 70s with the Raiders, man. Just look at the teams that was there, like Miami, and it's just, you can argue and say that Ken Stabler is like the Karl Malone of the NFL, where it's like, but the only difference is that Ken Stabler actually got his ring and Karl didn't. I'm not throwing Karl under the bus for all y'all people out there. I'm not throwing Karl under the bus. I'm just saying, like, well, I'm like, when you really look back at his career, very good quarterback. I'm just surprised that he's not a multiple-time world champion. But hey, he's got he's got a ring, man. R.I.P. to Ken Stabler. Now I want to talk about Dick Stifel. All right, Richard Anthony Stifel, if you want me to go there with it. 5-time Pro Bowler. Played with the Detroit Lions. From 1952 to 1955, I think, and then he played with my Washington Redskins for a brief period of time. Wasn't a part of the Hogs though, so I can't link him to that. Just another bookend, man. Just another big, bruising offensive tackle. You know what I'm saying? Oh no, offensive guard. I think he was drafted as a tackle, but ended up playing guard. Man, just the standard, man. Just the standard barrier. Like I said, I got inspired to be an offensive guard, offensive tackle, and I can't personally say that I watched tape on Dick Stifel back in the day, but I have looked it up, and the guy was a force, man. I mean, he was pretty darn good, very consistent, didn't miss too many games. Like I said, like there's a lot of offensive tackles in the Hall of Fame that you could sit there and you could say, man, hey, These guys were the standards, man, along with Orlando Pace. Just Orlando Pace, I kind of connect with a little bit more because, I actually sat there and I actually watched those teams back in the day, those Rams teams, and I seen like everybody sees Halt and Bruce catching touchdowns and Marshall Faulk running for 1,000 yards and all this other stuff, but under the hood, Orlando Pace, that was the man. And you look at Dick Stifle and say that he was a very big um, part of those teams that he was a part of. But the only thing about Dick Stifle was that he didn't have a long career here, and that's one thing that I know there's a topic for another video. I can't speak on his injuries, but there's a lot of guys that have had Hall of Fame careers that have had their careers ended early from injuries. I'm not saying that that's what happened to Stifle, but when you look at his career and how long it was, and see that he was still a Hall of Famer and made the Pro Bowl basically almost in every single year, just the standard of what an offensive guard is supposed to be in modern day NFL. I'm pretty sure that he's an inspiration to a bunch of guys. Now, let me go on to one of my personal favorites here, Marvin Harrison. Marvin Harrison spent his entire career with the Indianapolis Colts, an 8-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion. What can I say about Marvin Harrison that has not already been said about the man? I mean, just Mr. Consistent. I mean, you just look at his consistency over the years, and you can say that he was Peyton Manning's personal blanket. You know what I'm saying? Like he was that go-to guy. He was that comfort zone. I say blanket because just real comfortable. It just seemed like these guys just knew that they had like this mental thing. And when you go back and you watch tapes of like Peyton and Marvin Harrison, 4 or 5 hours before the game throwing, getting their timing down, and then you look at modern day NFL and it's like you don't necessarily see that being shown, but Marvin Harrison, sharp cuts. He wasn't the fastest guy on the field, but he had great hands. He reminds me like when I think of Marvin Harrison, I also think of Hines Ward. I also think of him because these guys could catch balls in traffic. These guys were elusive. It was just it was amazing to watch these guys play, and it was it was definitely one of those things like um I'm just kind of shocked that he didn't win more than one Super Bowl. Like when you think about Peyton Manning's career, I know he just won a Super Bowl just last year. All those passing records, all those receiving records that Marvin Harrison and Peyton Manning racked up, and you would think that these guys would have had more than one ring in Indianapolis, but I mean, it is what it is. It's just my opinion. I mean, at the end of the day. All right, now I want to go on to Edward DeBartolo, um, former owner of the San Francisco 49ers. I can say that. Let me say it like this, man. Like before DeBartolo, San Francisco sucked. I mean, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it like that, man. They sucked. Um, and then like his fourth year owning the team. They won the Super Bowl back in '81. And then here comes the dynasty, man. I mean, hired Bill Walsh. Bill Walsh brought in Steve Young, Montana, Rice, all those good 49ers teams. They were under his watch as the principal owner of the San Francisco 49ers, man. So, I look at owners like, Mark Cuban, and I guarantee you that those guys like that, Daniel Snyder, owner of my team, my favorite team. Um, they should look at the blueprint of what this guy's put together, man. And whatever he did, man, they need to just kind of bottle it up, man, and just kind of just feed it to everybody, man, because this is the way that you run an organization. I mean, there was a period of time in which um, San Francisco was just like either in the conference finals, just in the playoffs, man, winning Super Bowls just every single year from like the 80s into like the late 90s. They were just like a staple in the playoffs. Like he was a large part of that. So as far as like for the owners game, he was definitely a pioneer. And looking at like modern day owners, like you hear about owners on Snapchat and owners making a whole bunch of nonsensical comments. You didn't hear anything from this guy. He just ran that franchise correctly. And when you think about the dynasty of the San Francisco 49ers, he is definitely the link to that. Definitely the link. And last but not least, because this is like a 15, 16, 17-minute video, and if you listen to all 16, 17 minutes of it, thumbs it up for me. Brett Favre. I mean, what can I really say about Brett Favre that y'all don't already know? 11-time Pro Bowler, 1-time Super Bowl champion, 3-time league MVP. Played with the Falcons. Of course, he played with the Packers. Played with the Jets and the Vikings. I'm gonna tell you like this: his run with the Jets is something I kind of want to forget, because he didn't really do all that great. But his run with the Vikings was pretty darn good. Nobody remembers his run with the Falcons, but he was there. He'll definitely be remembered as a Packer. What can I say about Brett, man? Like, I mean, there's a lot of things that you can say about Brett. Very charismatic, you know what I'm saying? Very, they call him the gunslinger when you watch his games. And when I first seen Brett Favre back in 2000, not 2000, but 1995. It was the first time I seen him. I watched one of his games from start to end, and I was like, man, it just looked effortless to him. You know what I'm saying? Like the game just looked effortless. I know I said something else before then, but yeah, it just looked effortless to this guy, man. From out of Southern Miss, so he came from out of a small college. I mean, this guy's he's basically got just about every passing record that you could think of, including interceptions. I don't know. I don't think anybody's going to break that record. So I think that Brett is basically safe on that. But, I think that one thing that, a lot of people need to understand about Brett Favre's career is that his breakup with the Packers is, I don't think that it's a black cloud on the guy's career. I think that people will look at that and say, oh, this, and this. All y'all Packers fans that hold that against him, stop it. All right, just stop it. I know he played for your rival. I know he wanted to beat you, but he wasn't done playing, and you guys drafted Aaron Rodgers, which was the right move. I mean, everybody can agree that that was the right move. But I can't blame Brett for wanting to continue on his career. He should have retired. Only playing for two teams, the Falcons and the Packers, but that's just the business in the NFL. So let me know how you guys feel about this review. Did I leave anything out about any of the inductees into the class of 2016 Hall of Fame? I know this is a long video, but if you liked the video and you enjoyed it, just go ahead and leave a like, thumbs up, share it with your peoples, man. I hear the music in the background. I just love it, man. I just love it. Football season's right around the corner. Hall of Fame game coming up shortly after this video. I don't know if I'm going to be doing breakdowns of the teams. I don't think I will, but I might think about it. Until next time, folks, this is the WC World Championship Breaking News Special Edition. Until next time, folks. Peace out.